Okay, thank you. Can we get the thingy working? Okay, there we go. So, like said, my name is Ilona Hiila, and I come from Vapa Media. And today I'm talking under the topic content world domination. And I know that the Reactor guys have set up a beautiful platform where you can send your questions, but you can also send questions to me via Twitter, because I use it quite a lot. And after this presentation, I can also have a look and then try to answer you. And of course, you can raise your hand, and I will try to answer all your questions relating this presentation or your life, whatever it is. This speech is focused around communication and why content is a huge part of online today. And before we go ahead, I have to make one thing clear, because we are now in a Reactor Design Day. So I'm not a designer at all. I cannot draw, not even boxes, not balls or anything. My visual techniques are basically limited to this. This is clip art's picture. I don't know if any of you know that beautiful the thing that Microsoft has created, but I don't know, I think it's just wonderful. But if I'm not a designer, what am I, and what am I doing here? Like said, I'm the founding partner, and yes, creative director, but maybe the thing that I do most is content strategy. I'm a content strategist at Vapa Media, and also I'm partner of Mrs. Muir and the Ghostwriter. And sounds weird, but this company is basically a company that produces content we or other people design. So whether it's a blog, a video, an article, or digital copywriting, Mrs. Muir and the Ghostwriters is a company to do it for you. Before we go ahead, I want to tell a little bit about my past, because I think it affects the reasons why we first set up Vapa Media, the content agency. So this is me, drinking coffee from a mug. And my background is pretty messy. I've done almost any media job you can imagine. I've been a journalist, and see, I again had to use these clip art things because I don't know, they're just so cool. I've been a columnist. I had my own radio show in an underground radio station called Basso for 4 years. I've been a PR officer, which is a weird term, officer. I don't know what they do, but that was my title. And then I've also done actually communications design. And this picture has nothing to do with communication design, but I don't know, a guy surfing with a little, suitcase on a chartboard, world. You have to use it. If you find this, you have to use it. So that's why it's there. But these are the things that I've done. And like said, I've been working on the different fields of media. On the other hand, I've been a journalist who's been creating content for audiences. But also I've been a PR officer or communications designer who's been designing content for journalists. And this working in a way behind, whoopsie, you didn't see that? Those who know. Okay, let's do this shortly. Sorry, technical guys. I will try to fix this. There we go. No. Yes, is it working? No? Yes, it is. Okay, wonderful, great. So working behind enemy lines in a way kind of taught me that companies are doing communications in a wrong way today. As companies are focusing on PR, they are really missing out the opportunity to connect with the end users, with the customers or the audiences. There's so much talk in communications or PR about how to connect with journalists, how to create the great, news PR release, that companies were really forgetting that they could actually be in contact with their clients or their customers directly online. So I saw in my work that the way companies communicated online didn't really resonate the way people were using content in online environment. Because the fact is that content online is used extremely independently. So if you look at the way you use online media or online content or the way other people use it, you can really say that we choose ourselves what we want to see or hear or click. So the individuals were, and of course are at the moment as well, looking for content that is relevant and meaningful for them. But what was happening before was that companies were focusing on this. And I don't know, this is bullshit, I think. I don't know about you, maybe you want to get, that, I don't know, that's just scary. But the truth is that companies are still focusing on this even when the click-through rates of banner ads are really horrible. Even on the platforms where you are supposed to have extremely engaged customers, you are seeing less than 1% click-through rates in banner ads. And still, this is one of the main aspects of online communication and marketing, and that's where most of the resources also go. So back then, when we were starting up Vapa Media, we wanted to do it because we really saw that companies were really in very deep running sand with almost anything that had to do anything with content. So whether it was a website renewal, social media, or just communicating through your own site, companies were really focusing, at least maybe in Finland, to the layout or the technology or to the interface, which are of course important aspects of any design. But many companies weren't really thinking about what kind of content would they give to their customers, or what kind of content could actually reach their customers and engage them. And that's like having a dinner with only cutlery and plates and no food at all. So back then, over 3 years ago, it was pretty obvious that we had to come and rescue companies and developers and designers from this situation. But let's get down to our subject, which is, like said, content world domination. But before I talk about domination, I want to talk about content because what I've noticed is that when a group of people sits down together and talks about content, they all have a different view on what are they actually talking about. What is content? Some people see content as articles. Some people see it as digital copywriting. Some people see it as a blog or a blog post. And some people see it as a competition. I've seen many times companies say that, we have content on Facebook. What is your content? We have this competition there. Isn't that enough? And then you're like, nah, maybe not. But yeah, some people of course also think that status update is what content is. That the only meaning of content on, for example, social media is that we do statuses about how great things are. Content can be information, a video, advertisement, layout. Sometimes when I talk about content, people are actually talking about the layout, not the content itself. A photo, a form, a block. I don't know about you guys, but I work with many designers and developers in my work, and I've seen that sometimes when we talk about content, they're talking about a block, that here will be a content block, and I'm starting to ask but what's in it? And how do we do it? And who's going to create it? And what do we want it to actually present? So this a block thing, I don't know, I'm still not sure what it actually is, but it's widely used between companies and designers that is content. And then we of course have this little thing that I would personally would want to disappear soon, but I don't think it's going to happen, at least not in the next 5 years, but this banner ad thing. But now, today, when I'm talking about content to you guys, I'm talking about digital content that is published on various platforms that aims to engage and of course reach customers. And I'm talking about content that is the data people consume online. So rather than having data that people use, content, when I talk about it, is something people consume all the time. And of course, it is supported by the visual and or technical design. But what do I talk about when I talk about domination? Because that can be a lot of things. You know, you might think it's this, and that's okay. You know, I'm not going to judge anyone here. But this picture shows how differently we really comprehend words or content. We all look at it from our own subjective point of view. And when I think about content, when I was thinking about this speech, one thing came to my mind, and it was this, Stewie Griffin. Do you know this character? Can you raise like your hands if you know it? Okay, so most of you know it, but for those who don't know it, Stewie is from a TV animation called The Family Guy. And it's about this American family, and of course weird things and funny things happen, and Stewie is the baby of the family, the youngest of the all siblings, and what he does is that he basically plots to dominate the world. That's what he does. And although I love this character, and Stewie's character was the first thing that came to my mind when I was thinking about this domination thing, my speech isn't really about how content can dominate world or how I, as a content strategist, can, plot to have this kind of domination over you guys, for example. No, I don't actually need to do that, because if we look at things, we can really see that content already dominates all the experiences we have online. Because content is the essential part of anything we do or anything we experience online. So even before anyone has used your interface, or even before anyone has seen your layout or your design, there's been some content involved. And usually this content is distributed by channels and platforms and services such as Google, Facebook, Twitter, or some other social media platform. So if you want to dominate something with your design, or you want to give people experiences, sorry, I'm moving actually all the time, so I hope the cameraman is keeping up with me. But you need to know how to design dominating content. And here we have the little Stewie again with Brian, with the dog of the family. So, how do we design content that is dominating? Like I said before, dominating content is not a PR release. What I saw in my previous work and what I saw in my past was companies were really trying to connect with customers by just telling about their brand, using these old methods of communications and marketing. And of course, we as users are looking for something else. So the first rule of creating dominating content is to forget your brand. Companies have, in the recent years, really jumped on this content marketing bandwagon. Everyone's talking about content, I can do content, I have content marketing things, whatever. But the way companies do it, in my opinion, is perhaps not always the right way to do it. And sometimes I even feel sick when I look at companies doing content marketing. Because many companies design their content from the perspective that people are just naturally interested in my brand or my services. And I don't know. I don't think it goes like that. Most people are not interested in your brand or your products, and probably will not follow you unless you're, Apple or Game of Thrones. So to really get people to follow you, you need to understand that they do not follow you and they do not consume your content because of your brand. They consume and share your content because it's valuable for them. it has some kind of relevance for their life or their needs. And that's also the reason why they want to share it. They're not going to share it because they like your brand. They're going to share it if they think that my people, my friends, will probably benefit from this content. So how can you create content if you cannot create content from your brand or the point of view of your own company? How is that possible? I had the pleasure to meet and see a presentation of Hawk Thompson, who is a content strategist at Razorfish in New York, in a content strategy forum seminar 2 weeks ago. And he was talking about a great thing called find shared interests. So rather than just trying to figure out what you want to say, you should try to find out what is the thing that is common between you, your company, and of course your audiences. So what you need to do is research what is the interest that your company and the audiences have in common. So whether it's cooking, history, humor, mathematics, there is probably something that you share with your customers. It might be something that they need. It might be information that is useful for them, or it might be something that is funny and is something that they can connect with. But probably you share more than just your brand and your products with your customers. You have to understand also where your customers hang out. If you want to produce content, you of course have to think where you're going to publish it on. And I think here we are talking a lot about services or platforms, and that's one place to publish your content. But there are of course several places, and you just need to understand what are the places where your customers hang out. And it might not be Facebook, it might not be Twitter, it can be an online media, and you need to do advertising or native advertising, as it's called in content marketing, on those platforms where the people are. You need to understand what the people are talking about in order to understand what kind of content, what kind of information is actually missing from their lives. So in order to create great content marketing or great content, you need to find these shared interests, and you cannot do that by just taking 5 hipsters to a room, giving them latte and just saying, come up with something really creative. That's one part of it. But first you need to research who are our customers, what do they want, who are the other people who are talking to them, who are the people producing content that is within the shared interests of us and our audiences. So you need to research it first and then get on with the creative stuff to design wonderful content that is actually interesting for the customers. Okay. Rule number 2. Create moments. So like I said, people have different views on what is content. But I can assure you that 80% of your content shouldn't be sales pitches. Being online is like being on a dinner, having a group of friends, you're eating, you're having a great time, you're drinking wine. And if you look at this, you can quite easily realize that no one will talk with you if you only talk about yourself. If you're only talking about stuff that you do or stuff that you sell. And that's why when you design content in online environment, it's not just about creating information or sales pitches. It is about being the person and being the giver of information that you would want to follow. So it's about also creating moments together with your audiences. It's not just sales. Okay, when I talk about these moments, I often hear that, whatever, moments. But we got this banner campaign, and all right, so it didn't really affect our sales, but we really could research and we could say that our awareness is now better. People are aware of our brand. And in this moment, I usually say that you need to think what is important to you? What is important to your company? Is it awareness or is it familiarity? I'm not sure how to say that, but you will get the point. So if we look at, for example, Kim Jong-un, I think he has the best awareness in North Korea. I think, 99.9% of the population know who this guy is. But is it good awareness? No. Everyone knows who he is, but so what? Would people follow Kim here if they would have an option? Probably yes. So what I always say that instead of just focusing on awareness, companies should really research also if audiences feel familiar with the company they interact with. It's like adding a little bit of Santa Claus to our Kim here, and it's about understanding that clicks are not everything. Clicks are of course important, but what is also really important is the quality of the engagement, quality of the people who are following you, and quality of the people who are consuming your content. Rule number 3, love it. When we work with different kinds of companies, and usually these are big Finnish companies operating in Finnish markets and abroad, we usually encounter one thing that is very common to everyone. Content is made as an extra work. So content is something that people do after the important stuff is done. And of course, you can imagine what the results are. And this way of thinking that content is something we do on the late nights, the PR officer again has said that, you need to do that goddamn blog post or I will kill you. And then you are writing it at 4 a.m. in the morning and you are sweating and you think that no one's going to read it. And you're probably right, no one is going to read it. So this is a big problem because in online environments, companies are really competing against numerous content creators, also individuals. And what makes individuals so successful is that they are not just passionate about what they pin or what is their hobby, for example, in Pinterest. They are passionate about sharing this with others. So as important as their, for example, photography is for the pinner or the food is for pinner, they are also deeply committed in creating that content. They also love pinning or sharing or creating or writing. This is actually a board of one of our employees, Nora, who has, I think, 170,000 followers on Pinterest. And the only way she has done that, of course I could say that she's done that because we are so good and we have given her instructions, but no, the way that she has done this is because she loves to pin. So she loves to create content. And when companies are competing against these kind of people, they need to understand that the content, that to be successful with content requires that the content you share should be as important as the product or the services they sell. Well, this of course affects at least one thing. Resources, of course, the horrible R word that we never want to talk about. I had pleasure of meeting and talking with Coca-Cola's Jonathan Hoban last February about Coca-Cola's liquid content strategy. And does any of you know what this is? If someone knows, you can raise your hand. Okay, so there's one person, great, good for you. But this strategy is basically their new marketing strategy. And Coca-Cola has decided that by the year 2020, they will double their business. And the way they will do it is with content. So they have moved away from traditional marketing. Of course, they do that as well. But they have brought in also content marketing, and they have strong emphasis on creating content, but also engaging customers and audiences to create content with them. If you're not familiar with this, I strongly recommend that you go to Google or YouTube and you type in liquid content strategy, because they have made a wonderful little video or animation about this strategy, and you will learn a lot more than I can speak in 45 minutes. So anyway, we were talking with Jonathan about their strategy, and Jonathan said, I think, Jonathan put it in a really good way that what has happened. So Jonathan said that the way we did online before was a little like bowling. And now it's more like ping pong. So what does this mean? It means that before this new strategy, Coca-Cola had this huge ball that was aimed at a static group of people in order to get them fall. So they had this huge campaign. So this is a huge campaign. It's heavy. It takes lots of resources. You know, you really need to lift it up. You take it to your hand, and then you swing it. And there it goes. You know, you cannot control it anymore. Is it going to go there? Is it going to go? No, it went to the curve or whatever it is. And that really pinpoints what marketing has been for the past, I don't know, 150 years. It has been about designing something huge, and usually something really wonderful as well, of course. But the problem has been that the people that it has been aimed at has been seen as static people that cannot react to it. And also that it has been seen that way that once you lose the ball, once you put the campaign out, there's really nothing you can do about it anymore. It's gone, and it's either going to work or not. But the truth is that today, especially in online environment, we are operating in this kind of environment. So rather than having the control of the campaign or the interaction with clients only when you have the ball in your hand, you're actually all the time playing with consumers. So consumers or your audiences are not anymore just something static that you want to throw something at, you want to get them to fall. That's not what we do anymore. We are actually playing the ball with them, and we have to wait how they respond when we take the ball to their direction. So you don't really send something once or 4 times a year. You do it all the time, and your actions are also affected by the way consumers or audiences react to it. And I think we all know this already, right? But the problem is the resources. Companies still resource their marketing and communication in a way that they would be using this huge bowling ball. We're playing ping pong, but we are playing it with the wrong ball. And this means that many companies, for example, and I think almost all companies usually plan their marketing and communication resources in the end of the year for the next year. And this is of course good, because then you can really count that, you know, we want to do this, we want to do that, we're going to use these operators. But the problem is that in online you should always have resources to actually to react to the way consumers or audiences are reacting. So if you are playing a ball and one ball falls, it doesn't matter, because you have another game, you have new balls, and if some game is really good, you should be able to put more resources and more money to that thing. So companies need to resource things differently, but this of course affects designers and their work. Because you as a designer or a developer should leave the bowling alley and start designing the ping pong table, taking in account the possibilities and needs of content, and taking into account the needs of this ongoing interaction between companies and their audiences. And don't be fooled that companies will just communicate on Facebook. I've heard that a lot as well, that, you know, we'll just use Facebook because it's free and we don't have to pay for anything and we can just communicate there. But for those who didn't know, Facebook is really expensive if you have lots of followers. If you have 20,000, then it's not going to cost you almost anything. But if you have hundreds of thousands, or if you have millions of followers, you really have to start paying some cash to those guys in Facebook, because of course, they're not going to do it for free just to be nice to you. And that is the reason why companies also need to think like, what are the other media outlets where we distribute our content? And of course, one of them usually is the website as well. But why should companies jump to the content marketing bandwagon, like I said? There are 3 points. And first, and maybe most important one, is of course costs. In online and with content marketing, it's easier to analyze what is working and what is not. And like said, when we are playing ping pong, if something isn't working, we can drop it. If something is working, we can put more resources to it and expect better results. And then of course reach. When we are operating online, we have the whole of internet as our media. So the company's message is not limited by the circulation of traditional media. It's not limited by any media, because there are several medias and several different platforms where your audiences operate on. And then of course targeting with an extra T on the writing as well. Because if you do content marketing, you are not doing push marketing, so you are not trying to push your message to everyone. You are trying to give a message that will pull the right people to your brand. So, how can you be part of this revolution? How can you start creating content, or how can you start creating familiar relationship or encounters with your customers online with content? Is basically understanding who the enemy is. So whether you're a designer or a content strategist, it's important that designers and content people do not fight against each other, because I've seen this happening as well. Designers are saying, these content people, they are forcing me to let go of my minimalistic Scandinavian design that no one can read. And then these content people are saying, oh, these designers don't do what I want to do because I know how it should be like. No, that's not the world that we live in, or at least it's not the world that we should live in. Designers and content strategists should really realize that you are fighting the battle of we've always done things this way. So everyone needs to challenge their clients or the company they work in to do things differently, to really utilize content as a tool to communicate, to reach, and in the end, engage customers. And to leave and to give a little shameless spam, you can also join the revolution by buying a book that I've written. So this is content marketing, strateginen ote verkkoon. It's unfortunately in Finnish, but it has some really nice pictures in it. So even if you cannot read Finnish, you can still enjoy the book. We have about 7 minutes for questions, so I want to thank you and hope to have some answers. Thanks.